Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm sure you've noticed a very disproportionately high number of truck drivers out there wearing turbans. Those people are Sikhs. Sikhism is a particular religion that is found predominantly in northern India. It is described as the religion of the sword because its symbol is the sword, or the kirpan, which is worn by Sikhs, and which is not a knife used for fighting, but is a symbol of religious devotion. Sikhs have been beaten to death in high school smoking areas and have refused to defend themselves using their kirpans. Pretty much since the 1960s, when they first started appearing in this country and rabid white supremacists started really making a point of targeting them. But of course, there are also Muslims and Hindus and Zoroastrians who are also being brought in and put behind the wheel of big rigs. Absolutely. And this is a problem. Now, the problem is not that there are people from India. That's not the problem. It never was, and it never will be. Crap. The problem is that the people who own these trucking companies are bringing these people in from India, holding their hand through the written test, and then certifying them to drive trucks without their having actually had to pass the certification process. And the reason that they do this is because they know that these kids from India will work 40, 50, 60, 80-hour shifts, despite it being illegal, because they are loyal and grateful to the white man who brought them in. The white man who brought them in. The white man who brought them in. And the reason the white man has brought them in is not out of any love of Middle Eastern or South Asian people. It's because he doesn't want to have to pay union-specified wages. He doesn't want truck drivers that stop every 8 hours and rest. He doesn't want truck drivers who demand good wages and safe working conditions. He wants truck drivers who will obediently go out there and do what they are told. Yeah. He wants truck drivers who will be obedient and loyal. And that's what these South Asians are. They are obedient and loyal. Because to them, Mr. White Man who brought me over and got me a job driving truck is my savior. He is my salvation. He has rescued me from a life of poverty, and I am so grateful, and I will do whatever he says. They don't realize they have a legal right, and yes, a legal obligation, to stop after 8 hours on the road and rest. They don't realize that they have a legal right and obligation to report unsafe working conditions to the labor board. They don't realize that they have a right to at least minimum wage, which is, what is it now, 18 something an hour? Probably going up to 20 an hour pretty soon. Yeah. They have those rights. So they end up working for, $5 an hour or less. And it's not that they are conspiring to take jobs away from Canadians. It's that their Canadian employers are conspiring to take jobs away from fellow Canadians in order to break the unions. That's why we see so many Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, and Zoroastrian truck drivers on the roads today, is because the trucking companies owned by white guys with names like Smith and McNichol and Jones and Jefferson, the white guys who own the trucking companies are bringing in Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and Zoroastrians and giving them jobs without properly training them because, yes, properly training them costs money. And they don't want to invest the money. And to be fair, they have sponsored these people's immigration, so they've already put out a fair amount of money. Training them to be good truck drivers is just not profitable at this point. Or rather, the profits are there. There is a profit to be made, but it's smaller, by a small amount, than the profit that they make by not investing in training these drivers. It all boils down to a balance sheet. And yeah, the result is tragedies. Tragedies that happen because unqualified truck drivers working 60 and 80-hour shifts without rest for less than minimum wage, they're out there. And they're having accidents because their boss, their Anglo boss, their white boss, instead of saying, after 8 hours you pull over and rest, says, you keep driving for 72 hours and I'll give you a $100 bonus. And if you get tired, just take some of these pills. That'll wake you up. And so these drivers are out there, they're eating uppers like candy. And they have no idea that they have a legal right and obligation to pull the fuck over and rest. And then they hit somebody. They clip a pedestrian. They slam into a Subaru. They take out an entire busload of hockey players. And the owner of the trucking company hangs them out to dry, throws them under the bus, as it were. I didn't know. He must be a terrorist. And that's what the press runs with. The conservative right-wing press runs with, oh my God, it's terrorists. Terrorism, terrorism. And people's brains shut down. And nobody investigates the owner of the trucking company for bringing these people in and putting them behind the wheel of a big rig that they are plainly not qualified to drive. You've got an 18-year-old from India who has been cheated through the written process and then given a road test by his employer that consisted quite literally of just being taught how to turn the truck on and off and how to shift gears. These are not properly trained drivers. And the trucking company that brings them in has the perfect weapon to distance themselves from these untrained and, let's face it, utterly incompetent drivers that they are putting on the road. They just scream, terrorism, terrorist, and the right-wing press laps it up and the public with them. Yeah. And it stops being about somebody who was brought in and put behind the wheel without being certified properly. Instead, it becomes a terrorist conspiracy. And he must have snuck into the country, specifically to commit a terrorist attack that killed all these people. Yeah. And that's the kind of bullshit that we have. They're putting unqualified people behind the wheel, dumping them as soon as a tragedy happens, and then using terrorism as the thought stopper to make you, the general public, not look too closely at why they were behind that fucking wheel. Now, I agree, they should not be behind the wheel. They need to be properly trained, and they're not getting properly trained, and you can tell the difference. East Indian truck drivers who have been properly trained, they're good. They know what they're doing, and they will pull over after 8 hours. They even have a timer in their truck. 8 hours. I'm pulling over. I'm not driving another inch until I've had a rest. A good, solid rest. But it's the ones who are being put on the road by greedy, white, capitalist trucking company owners who are not qualified, who should not be behind the wheel because they are not qualified. They don't understand the trucks. They have had their hand held through the written test, literally taking pictures of the quiz, forwarding those on their cell phone to their boss, who then feeds them the answers. So they don't even have to study. And they don't study. They don't learn. Because they're too busy being loyal to their boss. And they are loyal. That's why they're so popular with trucking company owners, is because of their loyalty. They are absolutely loyal. They don't want to join a union. They don't want to stand up for their rights as truck drivers. They don't want to fight for their rights as workers. They want to prove their loyalty by being obedient, by serving their master. And they serve their master. Their master being Mr. McNichol, or Mr. Jones, or Mr. Smith, or whoever it is that owns the trucking company and brought them over and put them behind the wheel in the first place. Yeah. They are loyal. And this makes them dangerous. They are untrained, incompetent, and fanatically loyal to the man who showed them the kindness to get them a truck driver's license and gave them the prestige of being a truck driver, so that now they can get that wonderful job driving trucks that will give them the money they need to marry Shamila back home in the old country and bring her over. And they'll be good Canadian citizens. And they'll be loyal to Mr. Smith, or Mr. Jones, or Mr. McNichol, because Mr. Smith, or Mr. Jones, or Mr. McNichol is their savior. And it does not occur to them that their savior is fucking exploiting them. That doesn't occur to them, because it can't. Because yes, South Asian loyalty is toxic. Yeah. But the fact that the owners of these companies are, in fact, exploiting these poor bastards relentlessly, making money hand over fist by doing so, and not being held accountable. This is part of the tragedy. It is a very real part of the tragedy, and it is something that we need to address. Along with the fact that, yes, there are all these unqualified truck drivers out there who are being brought in without being properly trained. We need to make sure that our roads are safe. And the regulations that exist that are supposed to protect us all, including those truck drivers, are being circumvented by greedy capitalists. It's not the fault of the poor bastard from India, the poor bastard from Sri Lanka, the poor bastard from Bangladesh, the poor bastard from Pakistan. It's not his fault that he's behind the wheel. He was put there by somebody. Now, it is his fault that he slammed into somebody, because he was incompetent, he was untrained, but he was still in control of a vehicle. He was still in control of a multi-ton, well, call it what it is, rolling thunder. Yeah. He was in control. That makes him responsible. And many of them have said, "I'm sorry, it is all my fault." But who put him behind the wheel in the first place? Who sponsored him? Who put him behind the wheel? And who is exploiting him relentlessly for maximum profit? We need to look at that as well, okay? We need to look at that. Because while no Sikh or Hindu or Muslim or Zoroastrian truck driver ever gets up in the morning and says, "I am going to crash into a vehicle full of innocent people," ha 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 ha. They never do. They never think that. Instead, what they think is, "I am being loyal to my boss, who got me this job and got me my citizenship, and he is going to help me be a successful truck driver." Ha ha ha. That's what they're thinking. The fact that they take out a family or a bunch of hockey players is not a conspiracy. It's a consequence of their being inadequately trained and not realizing that they have a right to say, "No, I've been working for 8 solid hours. It's time for me to pull over and take a rest." They don't know they have that right. And their loyalty, however misplaced, is still a fact of life. They are loyal. Their loyalty is, well, their loyalty is a disaster for everybody else on the road. Except for their boss, who's making money hand over fist. Yeah. For the truck drivers who have to live with the guilt and shame of having killed a family or killed a hockey team. For the other people who have lost their loved ones because, yeah, these truck drivers are, well, they're a fucking menace. They are a menace. For the general public, who are all in danger because these truck drivers are still out on the road. They have not been pulled off the road. Because, ta-da, unrestricted capitalism. Yeah, unrestricted capitalism. Who needs those pesky labor unions when you can just bring in a bunch of untrained, fanatically loyal, and blindly ignorant East Indians? Stick them behind the wheel, pay them shit wages, work them for 20, 40, 60, 80 hours straight. And if something goes wrong, you cut them loose and say, "I didn't know. He must be a terrorist." And you get away with it. You fucking get away with it. Because, yeah, again, unrestricted capitalism and, yeah, racism. Yeah. Yeah. Capitalism and racism. They do kind of go hand in hand. And between the two of them, well, a whole lot of people who should be treated better end up getting treated just worse and worse and worse. Yeah. tragedies will continue to happen until this practice is cracked down upon and the trucking companies who engage in it are held accountable. That is reality. That's reality. Anyways, that's enough out of me. The rest of you, take care, stay safe out there. If you're an East Indian who is being worked to death driving truck and you hear this, pull over, take a nap, and then go to the labor board, the labor ministry, and tell them exactly what is being done to you. Your loyalty to your boss stops the minute that it becomes dangerous to the general public. Talk to the labor board. Go to the press. Expose the corruption and exploitation taking place. Yeah, do that. Because your loyalty to a boss who will cut you loose the minute that you have an accident and pretend that he never met you. Your loyalty is not reciprocated. And loyalty should always be a two-way street. Anywho, take care, be well, stay safe, love yous all. Talk later.